My mother demanded I buy her a luxury car because I raised you. You owe me everything. When I refused, she cried to the family, calling me ungrateful and shouting, "You'd be nothing without me." Relatives turned against me as she smirked, "You'll come crawling back." I calmly replied, "Funny, since I just took you out of my will. Good luck funding your lifestyle now." Growing up in a modest neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, it was just me and my mom, Patricia. My dad left when I was 5, and from then on, she was both parent and provider. She worked long hours as a nurse, often picking up extra shifts to make ends meet. We didn't have much, but she made sure I had what I needed. I remember nights when she'd come home exhausted, yet still help me with my homework or attend my school events. Her dedication left a lasting impression on me. I was determined to make something of myself, not just for me, but for her too. I studied hard, earned scholarships, and eventually landed a job in tech that took me to San Francisco. The salary was more than I ever imagined, and I finally felt like I could give back to the woman who had given me everything. I started by paying off her mortgage, ensuring she could retire comfortably. I also sent her a monthly allowance, wanting her to enjoy her golden years without financial stress. During one of our regular phone calls, she brought up something unexpected. "Sweetheart," she began, her tone light but with an underlying seriousness. "I've been thinking. Since you're doing so well, maybe it's time I drove a car that reflects our success. What do you think about getting me a Mercedes or a BMW?" I was taken aback. "Mom, those are really expensive cars. Are you sure that's necessary?" She sighed, a hint of frustration in her voice. "After all I've done for you, don't you think I deserve something nice? I raised you on my own. You owe me everything." Her words stung. I had always intended to support her, but this felt more like a demand than a request. "Mom, I understand you want something nice, and I want that for you too. But a luxury car is a significant expense. Maybe we can look at something more affordable." She was silent for a moment before responding coldly, "I see how it is. After everything, this is the thanks I get." The conversation ended on a sour note. I hoped she'd come around, but instead, she took her grievances to the rest of the family. Soon, I started receiving calls and messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins. "How could you deny your mother this one thing? She sacrificed everything for you. You wouldn't be where you are without her." It felt like an ambush. The family I had always leaned on was now turning against me. Amidst the backlash, my mother sent a message that was particularly cutting. "You'll come crawling back. Remember, blood is thicker than water." I realized then that boundaries needed to be set. After consulting with my financial advisor and reflecting on the situation, I made a decision. I updated my will, ensuring that my assets would be allocated to charitable organizations and close friends who had supported me unconditionally. I called my mother to inform her. "Mom, I've made some decisions about my estate planning. Given our recent disagreements, I've decided to remove you as a beneficiary." There was a long pause before she erupted. "How dare you? After everything, you're cutting me off." "Mom, this isn't about cutting you off. It's about setting boundaries and ensuring my wishes are respected." She hung up, and the silence that followed was deafening. Family gatherings became awkward, with many relatives siding with her. I became the black sheep, the ungrateful child who abandoned his mother. But amidst the turmoil, I found solace in friends who became like family. They reminded me that while we can't choose our relatives, we can choose who we allow in our lives. Years passed, and the rift with my mother remained. She continued to live her life, and I lived mine. Occasionally, I'd hear updates about her from mutual acquaintances, but direct contact was minimal. One day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my mother. "Dear, your name. I've had time to reflect on our disagreements. Perhaps I was too demanding, and I regret the pain caused. If you're open to it, I'd like to mend our relationship. Love." Mom, it wasn't an apology, but it was a start. I realized that while boundaries are essential, forgiveness is also a gift we give ourselves. I decided to meet her halfway, understanding that relationships are complex and require effort from both parties. Our relationship remains a work in progress, but through it all, I've learned the importance of self-respect, boundaries, and the true meaning of family. I didn't write back right away. Her letter felt calculated. Not cold, exactly, but not warm either. Like she wasn't sorry, just inconvenienced by the distance between us. Still, I kept the letter. Read it a few times. It stayed in a drawer for weeks while I sat with the idea of reconnecting. Then my cousin Mike called. He doesn't usually get involved in family drama. He's the kind of guy who minds his own business, so when he reached out, I picked up. Hey, he said. You talked to your mom lately? Not really, I replied. She sent a letter. He sighed, hesitating. You should know she's been telling people something weird. Said you cut her out of your will because you're planning to disappear or something. What? She told Aunt Cheryl that you were sick. Terminal, even. Said you wanted your final days to be peaceful. She cried about it at Sunday dinner. Said you refused treatment. People were devastated. I sat there, stunned. My mother had told the family I was dying. To cover the fact that I cut her out of my will? She said that? I'm fine. I'm healthy. I figured, Mike said. I didn't believe her. But a lot of them do. The next day, I started getting sympathy cards in the mail. One from my Aunt Valerie had a full Bible verse and ended with, "It's not too late to make peace with your mom." One of my cousins even messaged me asking if I was in hospice yet. I was shaking. This wasn't just guilt-tripping anymore. It was manipulation, plain and simple. She was lying about my health to save face and make me look like the villain who abandoned his dying mother. I called her. "Why are you telling people I'm sick?" I asked. She didn't even sound surprised. "I didn't say dying," she said quickly. "I just said you've been struggling. That you needed space. You said I was refusing treatment and wanted to die in peace. That's not the same as needing space." "Oh, stop being so dramatic," she snapped. "Maybe if you hadn't cut me off, I wouldn't have had to say anything." I was floored. No apology. No shame. Just justification. "You don't get to lie about something like that," I said. "You're using my life as a cover story." "Well, if you'd treated me with respect, none of this would have happened," she replied calmly. "Actions have consequences." Something in me snapped then. Not out of rage, just clarity. She wasn't going to change. She saw my success as hers to spend. My name, my achievements, my money, just extensions of what she believed she was owed. Anything less than full submission made me ungrateful. I hung up. Over the next few weeks, I started hearing other stories. Turns out, this wasn't new behavior. A few distant relatives confided that she had always exaggerated or twisted stories to get sympathy or money. One aunt admitted she stopped loaning her cash years ago after losing thousands that never got paid back. Another told me she once staged a breakup with a boyfriend to get her sister to rescue her financially. It was all starting to make sense. But then it got worse. She showed up in San Francisco, unannounced. I was leaving work late one night when I saw her outside my apartment building. She was leaning against the wall, looking tired but smug. Like she knew I wouldn't cause a scene. "I thought maybe if you saw me in person, you'd finally listen," she said. "I needed to see my son." "I didn't ask you to come here," I said. "You lied about me. Told people I was dying." She looked at me like I was the child again. "You embarrassed me. You humiliated me. I had to do something." There it was. She wasn't sorry. She was hurt. Not because of what she lost, but because I exposed her. Took away her control. The image she spent years building, that she was the sainted single mom with the golden sun, was cracking. She stayed for days. Left messages with my neighbors. Sat at the cafe around the corner, waiting. She didn't care that I had a life, a job, a boundary. She wanted control again. She wanted to be needed. But I didn't go back. Instead, I documented everything. Her showing up, the calls, the messages, the letters. I spoke with a lawyer. I didn't want this to escalate, but I wasn't going to be caught off guard again. And just when I thought she'd give up and go home, she did something I didn't expect. She filed a public lawsuit against me, claiming emotional damages. Said I promised to support her financially for life. That I was reneging on verbal agreements. That I was slandering her character and causing her public humiliation. I couldn't believe it. This was no longer just personal. It was legal. And it was all happening in broad daylight. No ending yet. It's still happening. But I'm not afraid anymore. The lawsuit caught me completely off guard. It was filed in Cook County, back in Chicago. She claimed I made verbal promises to support her indefinitely, and now that I'd abandoned her, she was suffering emotionally and financially. I remember reading through the initial court documents like they were fiction. She made herself out to be this broken woman, discarded by the ungrateful son she raised all by herself. There were even fabricated text logs attached, messages I had supposedly sent where I guaranteed she'd be taken care of forever. I stared at them stunned. They were fake. I forwarded everything to my attorney. He was blunt. This won't hold up, but it is going to get messy. And it did. Word spread through the family fast. Suddenly, people who'd stopped talking to me over the car situation were calling again, not to apologize, but to hear my side, now that there was an actual lawsuit. Some were subtle about it, others more direct. One cousin said, "Look, if you just bought the damn car, none of this would be happening." That's when I realized this wasn't about justice. It was about pride. She wasn't just trying to win in court, she wanted to win the narrative. To make sure she never had to admit that she'd gone too far. But something interesting happened during discovery. While digging through her financials, my legal team found large withdrawals and bank transfers to someone I didn't recognize. It looked like she'd been giving money away to a man named Raymond. Raymond was in his early 50s, had a record, and had been unemployed for years. He also had a long trail of financial disputes and small claims lawsuits filed against him. When we looked deeper, we found that he had been involved with my mother romantically. They'd been together, off and on, for nearly a decade. She had been financially supporting him. Tens of thousands of dollars over the years. Rent, car payments, even helping him start a business that never materialized. This wasn't about survival. It was about image and control. She used the money I gave her not to live modestly or comfortably, but to fund a man who drained her and ghosted her more than once. It changed the tone of everything. Now, I wasn't just a bad son, I was a son who refused to fund her boyfriend's lifestyle. And when the rest of the family found out, the mood shifted. A few relatives quietly messaged me, "Didn't know about that guy. That's messed up." One aunt even called to say, if I'd known, I wouldn't have taken her side. But my mother doubled down. She denied the relationship. Claimed he was just a friend in need. Even as the bank statements were laid out in court, she stuck to her story. It was like she believed if she said it enough times, it would become true. And then the real twist hit. A journalist reached out. Apparently, a local paper had picked up the case because of how unusual it was, a mother suing her adult child over verbal support promises. It wasn't national news or anything, but it was just salacious enough to attract attention. The reporter wanted to do a feature on family betrayal and money. At first, I ignored the request. I didn't want more fuel added to the fire. But then I saw what my mother had submitted in court, the letters, the fake text messages, and now her own public statement to the press. She told the reporter I was an emotionally cold tech bro who abandoned the very woman who gave up her life for him. She even claimed I had cut ties with everyone in the family and was dangerously obsessed with control. She painted herself as the tragic mother figure and me as the selfish son who used her as a stepping stone and discarded her like trash once I made it. That was it. I agreed to the interview. But I brought evidence. The real texts. The financial support records. The screenshots of her telling people I was dying. The lawsuit docs. The fake messages. The bank transfers to Raymond. The journalist was shocked. She told me off the record that she had originally gone in assuming I was a jerk. But the receipts changed the tone of everything. The article that came out a week later wasn't flattering to either of us, but it was honest. It talked about the cost of emotional blackmail, of blurred lines between love and obligation, and of the way money can twist already damaged relationships. It didn't make me a hero, but it told the truth. My mother was furious. She called me screaming, then crying, then threatening. She said I had ruined her reputation, that nobody would ever trust her again. I didn't respond. The court case is still pending. It's quiet now, the way things always are before they explode again. But it's not over. The lawsuit dragged on for months. Every hearing, every document, every phone call from my lawyer felt like one more heavy stone on my back. My work suffered. My social life disappeared. I started having trouble sleeping. Some days I'd just sit in my apartment, staring out the window, wondering how it got this far. Wondering if I had done something wrong too. Maybe I had pushed too hard. Maybe cutting her off completely set this whole thing on fire. But then I'd look at the messages again. The fake ones. The sympathy cards people had sent when they thought I was dying. The lawsuit. And I'd remember. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was war, and she started it. The final hearing came up. It wasn't a big courtroom scene like you see in movies. Just a small room, a judge, and a few lawyers. My mother sat across from me, dressed in her best, pretending to be delicate. But I could see it in her eyes, anger. Pure, sharp resentment. Her lawyer tried to play the abandoned single mother angle again. Said I emotionally manipulated her, made her dependent, then cut her off cold. They read out the fake text messages again. My lawyer calmly placed the originals in front of the judge. Verified. Timestamped. Real. Then came the financial documents. Transfers to Raymond. Credit card bills for his groceries, his rent, even a TV. You told the court this money was for your basic needs, my lawyer said. Can you explain why you paid $2,700 for a television that was delivered to Raymond's apartment? She went quiet. The judge asked for clarification. I was helping a friend, she mumbled. A friend with your son's money? The silence in the room was thick. Then my lawyer pulled out the last piece. The Facebook messages. Screenshots from my mother's account to Raymond, bragging about how much she was getting from me. How she could squeeze more out if she kept guilt-tripping me. She actually wrote, "He thinks he owes me everything. I'll get that car, watch." The judge stared at the papers for a long time. When the ruling came, it wasn't just a dismissal. It was a full takedown. The judge called the lawsuit manipulative, dishonest, and a clear abuse of the court system. He ordered her to pay my legal fees every cent. He said her actions were financially and emotionally exploitative. She didn't say a word. Just sat there red-faced, gripping her purse like it might run away. But the story wasn't over. I found out a week later that Raymond had cleaned out what was left of her savings. He vanished. She had co-signed on a lease for him. Now she was stuck with the payments. She tried to go back to some family members for help. Most of them didn't answer her calls. She sent me one final message. No apology. Just, "You've ruined my life. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. But yeah, I was. I sold the apartment in San Francisco and took a new job in Seattle. Fresh start. Better pay. New people. I donated a chunk of my court reimbursement to a local women's shelter, one that actually helps mothers in real need, not ones who use their children like ATMs. I still think about it sometimes. The whole thing. I wonder if I could have done something different. If I'd just bought the car, would it have all stayed buried? Maybe. But some things deserve to come to the surface. Some truths need the light. She wanted control. She wanted my success to be hers. She thought she could guilt me, lie about me, even sue me, and still win. She lost everything instead. And me? I got peace. Real peace. The kind you don't owe anyone for.